Welcome back to Brandon Talking Sports on a Tuesday afternoon, currently 2:45 p.m. Brandon, how's it going?
It's good. We just had another food truck that was outside.
Fryboard is the name.
Freiburg, yeah. It was pretty good. I mean, again, Freiburg, so you think about their fries, but I thought it was pretty good. But no, everything else is going pretty well though.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that food truck is probably they're a regular here, I would say, for the most part. What was here last week? Didn't we get something last week too?
Yes, it was. I don't remember what it was called, but it was a similar place though. It was like American food.
Whatever it was, I think Fryborg is better.
Probably. I would say
What
probably.
what did you end up getting?
I got a bacon cheeseburger with French fries.
Okay, I just got a cheeseburger with French fries, pretty much same thing. I think the fries are probably the highlight. I mean, I think I kind of got a little bit screwed over on the fries. I mean, they kind of gave me like a lot of, the fries were not great in length. They were quite short.
Oh, got like the end of the.
I mean, it was like closing time, so, but whatever. I guess we'll start with Super Bowl. I mean, that's what this episode's going to be about. So obviously, Bengals lose to the Rams. Final score was 23-20, right?
Yep.
So as far as our predictions are concerned, we both hit on the Rams. And what was your score prediction?
28-24.
So I was
You were 27-24.
okay. So I was technically closer, but I mean,
Yeah, technically, yeah.
I didn't feel that right about the game. I mean, I know I got the team right, and I was relatively close on the score, but I didn't play out the way I thought it was going to play out. There were a couple things that I thought, yeah, I think I could see that coming, but there were some stuff that I just didn't see coming. We'll start with the last couple minutes. That was by far the best part of the game. When that game was over, I had like almost no energy in me. Like I felt like, I don't know, I felt exhausted from watching that last couple minutes. It was a pretty good product, I think.
Well, first question, did you think this was a memorable Super Bowl or no? Because personally, I don't think it was memorable at all. I think it was a good game, but there was no standout play. There was no insane moment. I think if we look back at a couple years, we'll just remember that it happened, but you really won't remember. Like, it's not that memorable, in my opinion.
I would agree. I think this is probably a 7.5 or 7 out of 10 game in general. And then considering it's the Super Bowl, it's probably like a 5 out of 10, 6 out of 10.
Yeah.
It was a good game. And I think on average, you probably take it. But it's nowhere near some of the highs that we've seen in the Super Bowl. But it's also nowhere near the lows. I mean,
Yeah.
it was not a Seahawks-Broncos. It was not a Broncos-Panthers. It was not a Patriots-Rams 2018. It was better than those games. But yeah, I wouldn't say it was very memorable. But I think the best part of the game was the last 2 minutes. I guess my opening take, and you can tell me what you think about it, was I think Stafford is being overrated how well he played in this game. I don't think he played that well.
Well, I don't know if I've seen that many people say he played great in this game, to be fair.
I'll say this. The Chris Collinsworth, and I love Collinsworth, he's probably one of my favorites, if not my favorite color commentator. I think he overrated how memorable of a drive that last drive was. I think there was some great throws, and when you had to have it, Stafford and Kupp got it done. But I think it's a lot of Kupp, and I'm not sure it's a lot of Stafford. I will also say there was a little bit of choke there. You had, I think it was like 8 to 10 plays in the red zone, pretty much 8 plays in to get into the end zone from the 10-yard line. And it took you probably shouldn't have scored that drive. Let's be honest, the Logan Wilson holding call probably shouldn't have been called. If that's me, I'm not calling it, especially the way the game had been called. You're probably looking at 4th and goal from the 8-yard line. I don't think you're getting it, and I think the Bengals are, again, I'm not blaming the refs, but if that particular call hadn't been called, I personally believe the Bengals are winning that Super Bowl. I also think that throw that Stafford missed to Van Jefferson in the end zone. You remember that throw?
Yeah.
I thought that was kind of like, to me, that should have, I wanted that, and that should have been like the Stafford choke moment. But of course, then we end up getting the 2 holding calls, and that's that. I mean, when you give somebody 8 plays to get in from the 8-yard line, like you're not stopping anybody. Kupp ends up scoring on Eli Apple, who had a bad game. I think it's probably being a little bit overblown on social media. I think there are better cornerbacks in this game, or a better cornerback in this game, who had maybe not a worse game if you were to consider them equal players, but considering that cornerback that had just as bad of a game was regarded and probably still is regarded as the best cornerback in football, I think Eli Apple's probably getting a little bit too much hate, but I understand, and I guess it's technically justified, but thoughts in the last 2 minutes?
Yeah, well, I think the drive was pretty impressive. I mean, it started with 6 minutes and 13 seconds on the clock. You're down 20 to 16. You're starting at your own 21-yard line. The longest drive of the game that we'd seen was 75 yards by the T. Higgins touchdown, which we can probably talk about too. Again, that was a no call that should have been a call, which again, that you could maybe argue that balances out at the end of the game with the Logan Wilson call, because they scored a touchdown because of that. But again, pressure situation. Again, I've seen the stats now on Instagram and Twitter since the game. I think it's this year, the fourth quarter, last 2 minutes, like crunch time. Matthew Stafford has been the best quarterback in the league. It's like almost like every stat says that. So he's used to these situations. We saw it in Detroit, but now he's a better team, so he can actually pull off some of these wins because he has a defense now. But I think it was pretty impressive. Did he play a great game? He didn't play a great game. If he didn't throw 2 interceptions, he probably wins MVP because 3 touchdowns, 1 pick, gets the game-winning drive. He probably would win it, even though I feel Donald still should have won it anyways. But again, the 2 picks doesn't help. But I thought he played a pretty good game. This drive, I thought, like I said, I thought it was a pretty impressive drive. Now, look, they had 7 plays inside the 8-yard line to score, and he did miss Van Jefferson. Now, there was a defender there, so, I mean, you probably could have lobbed it over maybe. I don't know. He probably, if he had 10 different tries to do that again, he's probably connecting at least 8 out of 10 times on that again. But
I think even your Daniel Joneses of the world hits that 8 out of 10 times. I don't think that was a particularly difficult throw.
I don't think it was. I think he just missed him. But, I mean, look, he got lucky that he did get another chance, and then he obviously converted. So, but again, him and Kupp on that last drive were just surgical. I mean, they just were. I mean, I don't know exactly. I think it was 4 catches, 39 yards, and then obviously the touchdown. I believe that's what the numbers were. Actually, probably even more yards. I think he had a 22-yard catch. Yeah, so it was probably like 4 for 59 or 5 for 60, whatever it was. But when Kupp needed to show up, when Stafford needed to show up, and again, that no-look pass that he had, that was a ridiculous pass. I mean, he looked off 2 defenders. Kupp was like 5 yards away from where the ball ended up by the time he threw it. That was a great pass. That was the 22-yard pass that I was talking about. I thought he was great on that last drive. And look, I mean, they won the Super Bowl. He definitely gets a little bit of praise. I wouldn't say he doesn't get all of it. I mean, that definitely goes to Kupp, Donald, and the defense. But he, like we talked about it before, who's going to be right, me or you, between Stafford? I don't think either of us are wrong or right. I think we're probably in the middle. He played a good enough game to win. He didn't, win MVP, didn't throw for 400 yards, 5 touchdowns, but he also didn't lose them the game. I mean, the first pick, it was 3rd and 14. That's basically a punt. The second one, a little bit out in front, but the guy tipped it right to him. I mean, that's a little bit unlucky to be fair. So, am I looking at those as awful interceptions? No. It's not like they were inside their 10-yard line and he throws a pick 6. So yeah, I don't think he played terrible. I don't think he played great, but I think he played good enough, and obviously they won the game. So,
I mean, I was wrong about Stafford for this particular game. Well, I guess I technically wasn't wrong, but the take I had presented earlier in our last episode was the trade for Stafford was a lot to give up, and you're banking on him in this game being enough to get you over the hump that Goff couldn't get you over. And he ended up being able to do that, just barely. But that now makes that Stafford trade worth it.
But yeah, now it's worth it. Now, even if, I mean, obviously you want them to win another Super Bowl again, but even if they don't, it's worth it. It just is, because you already won a Super Bowl, so it's guaranteed to be worth it.
I would leave the 1% chance in there that it ends up not being worth it, only in the case that it's clear somehow that we would be able to tell that had they not traded for Stafford last year, they would have been able to get like a bone, certified elite quarterback this offseason, and if they come up short next year to a team that maybe did get that certain quarterback they could have gotten, that's like the 1% chance I would say that then it would not be as worth it as it could have been. But that's like a 1% chance of happening. But I would disagree with you on the Aaron Donald Super Bowl MVP take. Really? I personally think they got it right with Kupp. And now, listen, MVP is, I don't really care about it. I even think the Super Bowl MVP is a little bit overblown because it is very stat dependent. And the problem with MVP, the phrase is everybody gives it a different meaning. Is it best player on the field in that game / in that season? Is it best statistical? Is it actually most valuable? I don't know, but the way I look at it is you're just not winning that game without Kupp. You could say the same thing about Donald, but you could also say the same thing about Miller. I think Von Miller had a very underrated game. He had 2 sacks, and I think he frees up a lot of playmaking. He frees up a lot of game plan headspace for Aaron Donald to have some room. He's not getting double teamed every single time. They can't just focus on Aaron Donald. Like in Houston, barring maybe the 1 or 2 seasons where they had a competent pass rusher next to J.J. Watt, it was literally throw 3 offensive linemen at J.J. Watt, and it really doesn't matter because their defense isn't that talented except for Watt, and maybe a couple years they had some guys there, but really it was not anything close to what this defense is. I think Miller frees up a lot of space for Donald. And if it wasn't for Miller, and Miller still had a great game. Like Miller, again, he had 2 sacks, one of those sacks being a very crucial play in the game, in my opinion. Obviously not as crucial as Donald's plays, but again, in my opinion, without Miller, I don't think they're winning that. Without Donald, I don't think they're winning that. But without Kupp, I don't think they're not winning that. I know they're not winning that. They could have still won that game without Donald or without Miller. They're not winning that game without Kupp. And listen, part of it is not within Donald or Miller's control. OBJ goes down in the second quarter with the torn ACL. Jefferson hadn't been getting open much of the game, or if he had, which he really wasn't, Stafford just clearly did not trust him as much as he was trusting OBJ. What was their 4th string wide receiver's name?
Serenic. He's awful, but
clearly just wasn't. Even if he is good, he just didn't have the timing down with Stafford. That I guess you would argue that led to one of Stafford's picks was the OBJ injury. I don't think that. First off, that wasn't a good ball. But
it wasn't a terrible ball, to be fair.
What?
It wasn't a terrible ball.
No, it's not. It wasn't a terrible ball, but it was.
I mean,
it was a little bit.
If it is a better receiver, I'm not saying he's catching it, but he's probably making a better effort than just sticking his left arm out there and it goes right into the defender's.
I agree. No, I agree. I mean, if that is Van Jefferson in his place, Van Jefferson's probably half a step quicker, and that's why I say it was probably a timing issue. But I can't excuse it. It still wasn't a good throw. But anyways, back to the Kupp thing. Without Kupp, I don't see. There's just no way that drive happens. And in the last 2 minutes of the game, that drive just isn't happening without Kupp.
Well, I mean, that was my case for Kupp for just regular season MVP because this team is a good team without him, but it's just not like this offense is nowhere close to the ability that it was able to produce in the regular season and the postseason. Kupp had a great postseason. If he's not there, it's just he is the best player on that team offensively. Donald is the best player on that team overall, but. Yeah, without him, and again, his numbers, like postseason, regular season, all come together, like they showed the tweet or whatever, it's a ridiculous stat line that he was able to put up together. So I don't disagree that I'm not saying he shouldn't have been the MVP, because again, that final drive, and again, maybe that final drive doesn't happen, or he's not as big of a factor, they still win the game, but he's not like the biggest playmaker on that final drive. It probably goes to Donald, but obviously he had a huge impact on that last drive. But the case for Donald was, he was just and honestly, Leonard Floyd got injured in this game, so I think it was like about halfway through the game. So you have your 3-headed monster with Floyd, Donald, Miller. Now it's really just Donald and Miller, and I think that having Miller definitely frees up Donald, but I think it also, when Floyd gets injured, then you could actually double Donald more and go one-on-one with Miller, because I think you'd rather go one-on-one with Miller than one-on-one with Donald. I mean, you're choosing between two of the evils, but I think Miller's probably the lesser evil in that situation. compared to Donald. And so I think that makes it even more impressive what Donald did. One, just the final drive, the third down run stop. That was a huge play. If Donald doesn't hold, which I don't know why Mixon wasn't in on that play. If he doesn't hold P. Ryan back, it was literally 1 yard, and he stops him at the line. That's a huge play because now they're first down. There's 40 seconds left or whatever it was. Now you're 4th and 1, and then obviously beats the left guard. It just overpowers him, and then obviously would have been a sack if Burrow didn't throw it. But that's why I think Donald should have been MVP, because when they needed plays to be made and they needed someone to make a stop, he was the one making the stop. He was quiet in the first half, but in the second half, the team together got a lot of sacks, but it was because of Donald. He decided to take the game over defensively, and if you look at the second half stats for them, the one touchdown they had was the T. Higgins play, which again should have been offensive pass interference, and then they got a field goal because of the interception. So other than that, they punted or downs every single time in the second half. And I think that was because of Donald. I think Donald just decided to take the game over. That's why I think he should have been MVP. That's why I picked him to be MVP, because I thought he'd have a huge game. I wasn't wrong in that. He did have a huge game. But, either one's fine, but I think it should have been Donald. I think he won them the game because of what he did defensively.
I don't disagree with it. I would have been fine if Donald won MVP. My only thing is, I don't think they win without Donald, but I still give them a chance to win that game without Donald. I don't see a world in which they even compete in this game without Kupp. And again, is it part of it because OBJ goes down with an injury in the second quarter? Yeah, but we saw how incompetent that offense was. Anything past Kupp, past the second quarter. But I do want to. We talked about Stafford a bit last episode, and I wanted to give a take on where I think this places Stafford all time, because now the debate is Stafford a Hall of Famer? Do I think he'll make the Hall of Fame? Yes. Would he be in my Hall of Fame? No. I think what the Super Bowl does for him is it takes him from the Phillip Rivers / Matt Ryan category to the Hall of Very Good. I now think he is in the Hall of Very Good. I think, again, the quarterbacks that are trying to get into the Hall of Very Good or tried to but didn't would be Phillip Rivers. It would be Matt Ryan. Probably it's going to end up being Derek Carr is going to be probably in that trying to get in the Hall of Very Good place. It's probably going to be quarterbacks like that. I now think Stafford is in the Hall of Very Good, and the reason I don't put him in my Hall of Fame is really I just think we've seen in history any quarterback can win one Super Bowl. The ones that win two, they win two for a reason. It's not they don't win it by luck. Even Eli Manning, I know Eli Manning didn't have a great regular season career, but there aren't many quarterbacks that would have been able to do what he did in the biggest moments. And the fact that he did it twice, I think, means that no matter what the situations were, it wasn't just a coincidence, and it wasn't luck, and it wasn't they got this matchup in the playoffs. It was he got hot, and they won on historic runs, and no matter the era or whatever, no matter what the road would have been, they probably would have gotten it done. I think for Stafford to make the Hall of Fame, he needs to win another one for me.
We talked about this before. I posed the question on the last episode, would he be a Hall of Famer if he wins? And I think he will be. I kind of agree with what you're saying. The standard is getting lower and lower for quarterbacks to get in. Because again, Phillip Rivers will most likely get in. Eli's obviously going to get in. Big Ben's going to get in. Just guys who have recently retired. The question a Matt Ryan, I don't think he would get in unless he did win a Super Bowl. Again, he's 300 yards away from 60,000 passing yards. And everyone who has 60,000 plus is a Hall of Famer or will be because they just haven't been eligible yet. And even 50,000 above, everyone's a Hall of Famer. And then Stafford's 5 yards away from 50,000. So I believe, again, Stafford probably has another 3 years left of being a pretty, top 10 quarterback, which means, probably 4,000 plus yards. 30 plus touchdowns, whatever. So that's going to add on to stats. He's probably going to reach 60,000 passing yards in his career. So I think he will get in, even if he doesn't win another Super Bowl, which, that's, he could or couldn't. But, is he a true Hall of Famer when comparing him to a Peyton Manning, Brett Favre, even Big Ben? Probably not, but, the stats will be there. The Super Bowl is going to be there, even though he's only made one Pro Bowl, which I feel like he probably should have made a couple more. Again, that obviously your team kind of doesn't help in that, but, he didn't make the All-Decade team. I think every single All-Decade player in NFL history is in the Hall of Fame, so we'll see, but I think he will get in the Hall of Fame one day, which will probably be in 8, 9, 10 years.
To me, there's honestly no. I mean, to me, is he going to make the Hall of Fame in our current world? Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt about it. I mean, one Super Bowl, he's pretty much top 15 in any passing stat you can think of at least, and it's only going to get better. And I know that those stats are irrelevant because, obviously, Joe Montana is not going to be as high as maybe he should be in some of those passing stats, and the quarterbacks from, that era aren't going to be as high as you would think because of the way the game was played. It's just a different game.
Yeah.
So that's why I don't really care about those passing stats as much. And in 20 years, Stafford's passing stats are going to look a lot worse than they do right now. It just is what it is. The game's only going to get this isn't an insult, but it's the word that I think of right now. The game's going to continue to get softer and softer. It's not a bad thing or a good thing or whatever. It is what it is. Stafford would not be my Hall of Fame. I think maybe he's better than I gave him credit for, but again, I still think he's in. I mean, I wouldn't have him any better than the 7th best quarterback in the league right now. Still, even after winning a Super Bowl. And I still think for last season, I don't know. Last season, I probably would have had him at like the 11th or 12th range. He was probably better than that, but not by much. I mean, he was probably maybe the 8th or 9th best quarterback in the league last year. Let's not forget that he almost cost him the division. Yeah. And he had a few game stretch there where he was throwing, 6 pick sixes in 3 games or something?
I mean, I think I'd put him in the top 10 for the year that he had. But, I mean, I think
it's like
40 touchdowns. I mean,
He led the league in interceptions, too, by the way. Tied with Trevor Lawrence, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, he had 17, I think it was. I think he'd still be a top 10 quarterback, but no, I mean, I think as high as 7, I think is probably his highest. I think I would agree with that. I think probably somewhere from 7 to 12 is where I'd put him. I think that's fair.
So, and again, this is maybe not his best statistical season, but this is a season where he got the furthest by far, obviously. And he's still, again, you're still not placing him, even knowing he just won the Super Bowl, anywhere above 7. He's still not in that elite. If we're doing a tier list, he's still not in my top tier. He's not in my elite tier. He's on the low end of that second tier for me.
But again, even though Eli has 2 rings, he was probably always from 7 to 12 and maybe even a little bit worse. So, not that even though, again, he has 2 rings, if Stafford only has 1, but, Stafford's stats will look better at the end of the day. Touchdowns, yards, all that stuff. And again, Stafford probably is, somewhere from 7 to 12. Eli was probably there, and again, maybe even a little bit less. So you also have that argument too. I feel like we're on the same page about Stafford. We both think he's going to get the Hall of Fame.
Would he be in do you have your own Hall of Fame? What are your standards for your Hall of Fame? Give me a quarterback. Give me a quarterback that barely makes it into your Hall of Fame and a quarterback that barely doesn't.
Well, I'd have to think about that, but are
you a small hall guy or a big hall guy?
Well, I think that there should be I think every Hall of Fame is getting less and less strict. You can kind of make the Hall of Fame just by kind of being a good player, maybe even a really good player, but you're never a true MVP type player a couple years. In baseball, you have to have a 7-year prime, or at least 7 Hall of Fame seasons. Then you can at least be at least worthy of getting the Hall of Fame. I think a lot of leagues have just lessened down on that. As long as you have accolades and whatever, they don't really think about it. So I think Matt Ryan, I think is a good example. I'm assuming he's not going to win a ring in the next couple of years. It'll be interesting. I don't think he'd be a Hall of Famer. I don't think he would be. But, he has won an MVP. He's been to a Super Bowl. He's been, a pretty good quarterback over his career, won Rookie of the Year. So it'd be interesting to see. I don't think he would. But, again, in 10 years when he's, eligible and whatever, I wouldn't be surprised if he does get in. Because he'll have 60,000 plus yards. Again, MVP, which Stafford doesn't have. But would I put him in mine? No, I wouldn't.
Would you have Stafford in your Hall of Fame?
I'd have to see. how much longer, like, again, how many couple years he does and what he does. Again, being with the Rams and Mcvay, he's going to have really good years. There's just no question about it. So I'd probably say by the time his career's over, he probably would be, to be honest. A Super Bowl, maybe even 2, probably another Pro Bowl or 2, another couple of 4,000-plus yard seasons, maybe another 40-plus touchdown season. Like, those will add up. He'll get the touchdown numbers. Like, those do matter for quarterbacks, like, amount of touchdowns you have, amount of yards you have, even if it sounds dumb. Because, again, like, you look at passing yard leaders every single year, like, that doesn't mean anything. But in terms of career, I think it does mean something. Just not like, it's weird. Season-wise, it doesn't mean something, but career-wise, it does.
Would you have Eli Manning in your Hall of Fame?
I think so. I mean, 2 rings. It's kind of hard to argue 2 rings, especially when you were also the face of a franchise for, 15 years. You also, I mean, I don't know how much you put into it, but you beat, an undefeated team. You beat Tom Brady twice. Even though he wasn't great most of the other times, I mean, when it came time to, be his best, he was his best, to be fair, even though I don't think he's that good of a quarterback. But, yeah.
I would have Eli in my Hall of Fame, too. In general, I am a smaller Hall of Fame person over a larger. I really don't think there's a good Hall of Fame out there right now. I mean, the one that aligns most with what I would have is probably the Baseball Hall of Fame, but I would also argue the Baseball Hall of Fame is the most irrelevant and probably the dumbest Hall of Fame at the same time, because how the hell can you not have Barry Bonds in your Hall of Fame? That's ridiculous.
And I think basketball is the worst Hall of Fame. I mean, almost every single basketball player gets it.
I would agree with that if it weren't for the fact that, to me, baseball, it doesn't make any sense. I mean, it's just these 80-year-old dudes who are like, well, Barry Bonds did like, I don't get it. But Ortiz gets in. Listen, I mean, I would have Ortiz in my Hall of Fame. I'm just saying Ortiz was also busted for steroids. So
yeah,
it's like they pick and choose, and it's, Barry Bonds' steroid case was much more in the spotlight, obviously, than like Ortiz's was. And Ortiz was really, I think, only ever caught back in the very beginning of his career. But there were also periods where Barry Bonds, we don't know if he did steroids or not. And even the periods where he wasn't super blown up and jacked, where it was clear he's obviously roided up, he was still probably one of the best, if not the best, baseball players in those years, too, statistically. So, I would agree with you. I think the Basketball Hall of Fame is awful, but I also think I think all of them are pretty bad. I think the football one is okay, but I still do think that one is probably letting too many people in, too. I mean,
yeah. I mean, also they just announced like the people for it. I mean, like, DeMarcus Ware wasn't a Hall of Famer. Like, I mean, that's a little ridiculous. Like, DeMarcus Ware is a Hall of Famer, and he wasn't included on this list from this year.
Was this his first year of eligibility?
It was. I mean, if you look at the stats, look at the accolades, look at the awards, he's a Hall of Famer. I mean, has a Super Bowl, obviously with Denver 2015, won Defensive Player of the Year. I don't know exactly how many sacks he has, but I'm pretty sure it's 100 or at least over 100. So, I mean, there's some guys who got on there their first time that, it's a little ridiculous that some guys got on, some guys didn't, but...
I mean, I'd have to look more into it. I'd have to get the stats in front of me and really think about it. But, yeah, I would say his career probably sounds Hall of Fame. But, I don't know how long his peak really was. What's his peak? 2000?
He's, 9-time Pro Bowler, 4-time All-Pro, Super Bowl champ, Hall of Fame, all 2000s team.
Yeah, no, he's
138 and a half sacks.
Is he a first? I mean, he's probably Hall of Fame. Is he a first ballot Hall of Famer? I don't know. I mean, that's... I guess it depends on how, like, what are some, I don't know what the current first ballot Hall of Famers look like, but I think it should mean a lot to be a first ballot Hall of Famer.
I think it does. I think it does mean a lot to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. And just for comparison, just looking at people, he has 138 and a half sacks. Every single person above him is in the Hall of Fame. Julius Peppers isn't, but obviously he will be when he's eligible. Terrell Suggs, he's going to be in the Hall of Fame. I don't exactly know when he retired. A couple years ago, he's probably not eligible yet. But even the guys below him are. It just, that's if you look at the guys below him and above that have similar sack numbers, which really that's all it really matters when you're defensive end. If you put up 130 plus sacks, like you're a Hall of Fame player. You don't just put up 130 sacks in your career and you're somehow not a Hall of Fame player. You can't just do that for. You don't play defensive end for 20 years and get 138 sacks. It's not how it works. So, unless you were a dominant player, which obviously he was. But, No, I mean that's Football Hall of Fame. But I guess kind of going back to the game, it kind of got a little bit off track. But the a couple other things. Well, we still have our prop bets we can go over. I don't know if we'll probably talk a little bit more about the game, that we can go over that stuff. But I guess from the Bengals side, we didn't really talk about their side. They were actually able to run the ball a lot better than I thought. I thought they'd be able to run it, but not maybe this well. I thought they should have stuck with it more. Mixon was 15 carries, 72 yards, and Burrow, obviously, when the second half came, he had 0 time in the pocket. I don't really know why they went away from the run as much as they did. It felt like they were passing a lot. And like I said, if you look at their second half possessions, take away the first 2, which was the 75-yard touchdown and the interception that led to a field goal, they basically went 3 and out every single time. I don't really know why they didn't stick with the run. That seemed very weird to me. They were also up in the second half. They were up from literally the start of the third quarter all the way until that final drive, and they really did not run the ball. It was really odd to me.
I mean, to me, it's one of those things where it's like they have success running the ball, but at the same time, I think they're a team where the pass sets up the run. I probably run the ball too, like more. I agree with you. I'll probably run the ball more than they did in the second half, especially not having any sort of protection. But at the same time, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if they would have had that much success. I can't tell you for sure. But yeah, I mean, in hindsight, you're clearly running the ball at least a little bit more. I thought there were some play calls that were questionable by Zach Taylor. I'm not sure I loved the 4th and 1. I mean, I guess you kind of talked about it. I'm not sure if I loved the 4th and 1 play call.
I didn't love the 3rd and 1 play call. I did not think they should have ran the ball on 3rd and 1. I thought they should have thrown the ball on 3rd and 1. If you don't get it, then you still have the chance to run or pass it. Once it was 4th and 1, it was a guaranteed pass after the 3rd and 1 run, in my opinion. I thought they should have passed it on 3rd down. I didn't understand that run on 3rd down at all.
Yeah.
Especially if Mixon isn't out there. Like, why are you running the ball with Pirine and not Mixon if you're going to run the ball? I mean, it may be too obvious you're going to run the ball because Mixon's in. I mean, I don't think that's the case. I just didn't like that play call. I thought it was a bad play call. It's also just a draw up the middle, to be fair. It just that sequence wasn't a good sequence for Zach Taylor.
I would agree. I would probably have Mixon in there as well. I mean, Mixon's probably the difference between getting that extra half a yard on that draw versus being stopped literally by one of Aaron Donald's arms. So
all they needed was just the yard. You get that first down, clean set of downs, you're at midfield. I think they had at least a timeout left. So whole different game at that point if you get that first down right there. And like I said, I didn't like that 3rd down play call at all. But they only ran the ball 20 times. The Rams ran the ball 23 times for 43 yards. And the Bengals ran the ball 20 times for 79 yards, with 72 of those coming from Mixon. I just felt like they should have ran the ball more. Especially, it's not like they were down the second half. They were winning the entire second half, literally from the beginning all the way into the last minute of the game. So, just odd play calling.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I would also, again, if I'm talking about the Bengals and I have to place blame, there was really only one position, in my opinion, where the Bengals had, like, for sure the advantage, and that was quarterback. And how it actually played out in the game, I mean, Stafford probably had the better game, or it was at least pretty close, the Rams have the better defensive front. They have the better defensive secondary. If OBJ is not injured in the second quarter, they probably have the better receiving core as well. They have the better offensive line. Again, the only thing they probably don't have a better than the Bengals is probably the quarterback, and then maybe the running back core, because Cam Akers, again, is good running back, but still coming off a torn Achilles. I probably wouldn't even play. I probably wouldn't even have played Cam Akers in a lot of the playoffs. I don't think he looked very impressive in a vast majority of the playoffs. And I thought Sony Michel and Henderson could have been fine. But Burrow did not play well enough, in my opinion, to win this game. Obviously, he didn't. He probably could have played better in the last drive. I think there were times where there were a lot of times in the playoffs this year where Burrow looked cool, calm, and collected. I think there were some times where he did not have that sense of cool, calm, collected leadership that he did have in the AFC Championship game and the divisional round and the wild card in the regular season. So that was a little bit, I guess, not necessarily concerning, but the gap was not as big as I anticipated it to be, and because of that, the Rams ended up winning. So
Yeah, and I think another thing that almost helped Stafford's case was that the lack of the running game. I mean, they had 0 running game the entire game. It's not like their biggest run of the game was 8 yards, and that was by Cam Akers. And then the next one was Cooper Kupp 7 yards, which was on that 4th down play on the final drive. So I think that helps Stafford's case is that, I mean, they literally could not run the ball at all. So when you lose one phase of your offense and you literally have to go straight with the pass while losing Odell, because he was huge. I mean, for the first quarter and a half, he was on his way to win Super Bowl MVP if he would have stayed healthy. I mean, he just, at least the way the game was going that way, he had 2 catches, 52 yards, and a touchdown in the first quarter and a half of the game. So, and again, once he got injured, the Rams' offense kind of went nowhere, and then they picked it up late when they needed to. But I think that helps Stafford's case in this one. Again, Burrow, 22 of 33, 263 yards. Again, obviously the huge one, the 75-yard pass to Higgins obviously helps that. But I thought he played all right. Again, the offensive line didn't help. I mean, that was the whole question literally the entire season, was that this offensive line can't hold up against anyone. And when you're going against Donald, Miller, even though Floyd got injured, they're just not going to be able to block them. And even though the first half they did, the second half they just couldn't. I think they had 6 sacks in the second half. So they just couldn't do anything. Once that pass rush was coming, Burrow had no chance.
Yeah, I would agree. And people have talked about the Super Bowl, and they have said, listen, I know it sucks to lose the Super Bowl as a Bengals fan, but you still have to be happy. I mean, I agree with that in a nutshell, obviously. I envisioned this Bengals team being like a 5-11 or 6-10 team that is competitive week to week, but didn't have the talent to win many games. Did we get it to the Super Bowl? So is this year a success in general? Yes. But I think there's been a little bit too much optimism about the Bengals, because I've heard a lot of they're going to be back, this and that. This team is too talented not to be right back in the same spot next year. I don't agree with that.
I don't agree with that either.
I actually, listen, if you asked me who I thought needed to win this Super Bowl more, I would say the Rams, because you've thrown everything, all your eggs are in the basket for this Super Bowl and next year and the year after that, for probably these 3 years. So now 2 more years. All your eggs are in one basket. So yes, the Rams needed this Super Bowl probably more than the Bengals, but the AFC North is still going to be a very competitive division. The Ravens, obviously with Lamar, are probably going to look to potentially get Adams on the team next year. We'll see. I'm not going to predict that. They're probably going to make an addition offensively to help Lamar. Who knows? That team's still going to be really good, and if they're not bombarded with injuries, that team probably wins the division.
Yeah, even if they don't get Devontae Adams, just getting the guys back who are injured is going to make them the better team, most likely.
I mean, I would probably they're going to be a real.
There's so many injuries last year.
And then we also listen. I know the Steelers just lost Ben. Their team's not absurdly talented, but the Steelers are probably the most consistent organization in all of the NFL. Throughout every franchise's existence, I don't think we've seen a team as consistent as the Steelers and not being awful. Maybe the Packers, but I don't know. I mean, what were they before? I guess, yeah, maybe the Packers, but those are really the only 2 teams that have been consistently good, is probably the Steelers and the Packers. So I anticipate the Steelers to still be competitive. And then the Browns, the Browns, they did not do well this year, but if they do stick with Baker this year, that team is still good enough to win a playoff game.
Still
if
a 500
things go right.
team, if anything.
Yeah, it's still a competitive team that can beat you on any week. The spread is not going to be something absurd. It's still at Cincy, the spread's probably only 5 to 6 points. Bengals favorite. It's nothing crazy. So,
and if you just look at the AFC, I mean, you have Bills, Patriots, maybe Miami, probably not, but again, it's maybe. You have Cincy, but you have Cleveland, Baltimore, Tennessee, Indianapolis, then you have Kansas City, Raiders, Chargers, and then maybe even the Broncos too if they get a quarterback. So think of how many teams are going to be. Yeah, the Raiders. They're going to be there for sure. If they don't make the playoffs or what, they'll at least be 500 or at least around that competitive team, tough team. So if you just look at the AFC from that aspect, yeah, the Bengals. I think their odds are actually pretty low for next year. For returning back to the Super Bowl, because there's just so many other teams that are better or on the same level that the Bengals are most likely on. And then if you look at the NFC, I mean, the NFC's wide open. I mean, the Bucs aren't there unless they get a top quarterback, which seems unlikely. The Packers, who knows what's happening with Rodgers? If he stays, they still have a lot of questions. Devontae Adams, their whole receiving core are free agents, along with other guys too. So there's a lot of questions in the NFC. I mean, there's a lot of questions in the NFC in terms of who is a true contender. Is probably only 2 or 3 teams. While in the AFC, there's probably 5, 6, 7 teams that are like you can actually make the case they could make the Super Bowl. And the Bengals are probably on the lower side of those 7 teams, to be honest.
I still like the Bengals to be back next year and be in the divisional round, potentially hosting a game. Who knows? But I would agree with you. I think there's 7 or 8 teams that have a shot at the Super Bowl in the AFC.
Yeah.
And I would say there's probably only 3 or 4 in the NFC that I would give a shot. And then they'll probably, like just like every year, there's going to be 1 or 2 teams that have a shot that we don't see coming. But by default, there's going to be at least probably 2 to 4 more teams in the AFC competing with an actual shot compared to the NFC.
Yeah.
Maybe even more depending on what happens with Rodgers and Wilson. If they both go to the AFC, then I think you can legitimately make the argument the Bengals needed this Super Bowl more than the Rams. Listen, I still think the Rams needed it more than the Bengals because at the end of the day, even though the Bengals aren't that talented, Burrow is still so young. Chase is in his rookie year. That wide receiving core is young. And really all you need to do is maybe add a piece or 2 to the defense and an offensive lineman or 2. And then you're pretty set. But the Rams have a more consistent head coach as far as we're aware. Zach Taylor could be a bum. I have no idea. He could still be a bum, honestly. I could see Taylor, if the Bengals have a bad year this year and next year, I could see Taylor being fired. I wouldn't be surprised if Taylor turned out being a bad coach. I don't think that he certified himself as being, a great coach this year. I think 2018 was the real, that's when we clearly saw Mcvay was an elite head coach that year. Shanahan with the Niners, when they were going on runs, it was clear he's an elite head coach, even if he has problems. I don't think this was a year where we're like, okay, in recap, looking back at it, we can clearly see Zach Taylor as an elite head coach. I don't see that at all. So I think there is an argument to be made that the Bengals actually needed this Super Bowl and were more desperate for it than the Rams. Even though I'm not making that right now, I could easily see that being the case. So I don't think people should be saying, the Bengals are going to be back, because I don't think that's a foregone conclusion. Dan, you would have said the same thing about, again, Dan Marino.
I was about to say. He made a Super Bowl in the second year and never went back. It's easily possible that could happen. I mean, just because you're a great quarterback doesn't mean that you're automatically going to be in another Super Bowl at any time in your career. That's just not the way it works. I think I heard Trent Dilfer say, I don't particularly agree 100% with this, but I agree at least enough with it. He said he thinks the Bengals' window is closed for a Super Bowl. I don't think it's fully closed. But like we just said, the AFC is better than the NFC. If you also look at the quarterbacks in the AFC, Herbert, Jackson, Mahomes, Allen, even a Mac Jones, there's quarterbacks in the AFC that are just young and are going to be here for a long time that can just stunt growth. You just have one or 2 quarterbacks that can reach an AFC championship almost every single year, and obviously a Super Bowl. That just think of how many teams that takes away every single year. That's just what's going to happen. So the Bengals can make another Super Bowl, but to be honest, their team's not a dominant team. They need a lot of improvements. Again, they only went 10-7 this year with a pretty weak division considering the injuries and the disappointing play from some teams. They only went 10-7, so it's not like they were 13-4 or something like that, and they just dominated. I'll be curious to see what the record is next year. I wouldn't be surprised if it is 10-7 again, to be honest, because I think the Ravens will be better. The Browns will at least be the same, maybe a little bit better. The Steelers will be worse, just because they don't have a quarterback. But even still,
they
Steelers
could get a quarterback though.
They could get one, but even if they don't, they could still steal a game off you. I mean, that defense is still there. They still have T.J. Watt, so it's still possible you could lose a game to them. But I really wouldn't be surprised if they go 10-7 next year, and then probably lose in the first round, maybe win a playoff game, but then lose. I think that's easily plausible.
Yeah, it would not surprise me at all if this was the first team since, what was the last team to win a Super Bowl or to make the Super Bowl and then miss the playoffs the next year?
I mean, the Broncos did it.
I think it is the Broncos. I think it is the Broncos is the last team. Well, they won the Super Bowl though.
I guess the Niners 2019, they didn't make the playoffs in 2020 because they had all the injuries.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
That was
I guess it
also
hasn't-
injuries. So.
Yeah, I mean that was literally just injuries. That was the only reason they didn't, in my opinion at least. But anyways, it would not surprise me if this was a team that gets to the Super Bowl and the next year has a little bit of a hangover. Even I think the Super Bowl hangover is actually bigger for the losers than the winners in almost every single case. So it would not surprise me to see this team not make the playoffs. But with that being said, I mean I still think they're in a good spot. I mean, any team that doesn't already have their quarterback has to compare their draft pick to Burrow. That's why as a Patriots fan, I'm very worried. I mean, we just talked about how the Bengals window isn't really open, or if it is, it's really only, there's like a screen there, so it's open, but there's a screen. I mean, the Patriots window might not be open because, I mean, I'll tell you what, Mac Jones is not close to Burrow right now. He needs to make a leap physically and probably mentally to be where Burrow is right now, and that's worrisome because Burrow, again, is only in his second year, so Mac Jones has got to make that leap this offseason. We'll see if he makes it or not. I hope so, but yeah.
Yeah, I guess we'll see. But do you have anything else from the game itself?
I will give a little bit of a take on the Rams' defensive side. I think Ramsey had a horrible game. I know the T. Higgins play wasn't necessarily his fault, but I will also say I'm not sure he was in the perfect defensive position. He was in a good spot, right? I mean, he was there.
I mean,
he was ready to make a play, but
I think if he didn't get OPI'd, I think he's at least batting that down. I mean, he was in front of him and he's probably about to start jumping.
I don't think that ball's being picked off. That's what I would say.
I don't know if it's going to be picked off, but I don't know if it's being caught.
I don't know if it's being caught. I would be confident in saying I don't think that ball is going to be picked off because, listen, was that OPI pretty egregious? Yes, it was egregious, but it was not like he was flung to the ground. His head was just, listen. I'm not trying to say it was nothing because it was obviously an OPI and it was egregious, and without that, it's definitely not a touchdown. But that was not. Like, I still think even with that OPI, Ramsey could have made a play.
I don't know. I mean, he's running, forward, but obviously looking this way. So when he gets dragged like this, like I think your momentum kind of, I mean, again, it's never happened to me, but I can only assume when you're running that fast, trying to catch up with the guy on the sideline, and your face mask gets pulled this way, maybe flopped a little bit, to try and sell the call, but I mean, it definitely was a call, anyways.
No, it was, for sure.
Yeah, but again, maybe Teagan's if he doesn't OPI or whatever, maybe he just catches it, but he's for sure getting tackled right there because Ramsey was right there. So it's, instead of a 75-yard touchdown, maybe it's a 40-yard, 45-yard pass, and who knows, maybe they only get a field goal or whatever, but I mean, that was a huge play. I mean, literally first play right at the half, and you have that happen. And again, live TV, it looked like Ramsey just stumbled or whatever because you couldn't, we were seeing the back of them, which was what the ref saw. Again, to be fair, the ref, you really can't blame it on the ref because there was no ref to see the call because the ref who was, the one focusing on that play was behind them, and that's the same view we had on the TV, and none of us knew it was OPI when it happened in live action. So it's hard to blame the ref in that situation. Now, you'd like to think that there's someone in the middle of the field or somehow the guy upstairs could maybe look at that, like you would think, that's not a rule or whatever, but I mean, that's obviously, it was a huge call. I mean, like, because then the next play was the pick by Stafford, and then they got another 3 points, a 10-point swing off of, the first minute and a half of the third quarter. I mean, it was a huge point in the game.
Yeah. Anyways, I don't want to make it about that. I'm not holding anything against Ramsey for that play. We can take it out. Although I do think, again, the best cornerback in the league, I don't know if he should be giving up a touchdown on that play. I'm not saying he should make a play there, but I'm not sure if the play should be a touchdown. But anyways, he got beat by a rookie today, or not today, but Sunday. Was it the first drive where early in the first quarter or whatever, he gets toasted by Jamar Chase on that double move. And it was an insane catch by Chase, but I mean, Ramsey was clearly burnt on that play. Ramsey almost cost his team the Super Bowl in the last drive. I mean, trying to undercut that curl route.
Yeah.
That is
When that happened, I was like, you got to just play defense. You don't got to go for a pick at that point.
Even in real time, like that was so obvious to me. You're not picking that ball off. Like he was not close. It was not like he was close to taking that to the house.
And the weird thing is that he jumped it and then didn't even try and catch the ball. He like jumped it and then tried to tackle him. I don't know what he was trying to do. It was really weird.
Anyways, he gets killed on that. That almost cost him the game again. Yeah. If Donald and Miller aren't there to save the day, specifically Donald, but if Donald's not there to save the day and the Bengals win that Super Bowl, we're probably talking about Ramsey. Because out of all the good players on the Rams, Ramsey had the worst day by far. I mean, Stafford didn't have an awesome day, but he still had a good day. Obviously, Donald and Miller had big days. Kupp had a big day, obviously. I mean, Ramsey's the guy we're talking about. We're saying you're the best cornerback in the league. The Rams gave up 2 firsts for you, paid you a crap load of money, and in the biggest postseason run of your life, you get destroyed. I mean, you almost cost your team in the divisional round. Again, if we remember the Brady to Mike Evans touchdown pass late in the 4th, that was on Ramsey. And then in the Super Bowl, you're getting picked on. Like, it was like the way he got picked on was reminiscent of like when in any game when like a starting corner goes down with an injury, you'll typically see the offense immediately start picking at the replacement corner that's probably either the slot corner or the 4th-string corner, having to play on the outside, playing one-on-one against probably the team's best or second-best receiver. We instantly see the quarterback pick on that guy. That's what it was reminiscent of. But this is the best cornerback in the league. And to me, I'm not going to say Ramsey isn't the best cornerback in the league because I think the cornerback position is a little bit, I guess, down bad right now. I'm not sure if it's because the cornerback position is just not talented right now or because the way the league is just there's no such thing as a Deion Sanders or a Darrelle Revis or that type of guy. Maybe there just isn't. Maybe that's just not really possible anymore, which I wouldn't doubt. But I mean, I don't think Ramsey's clear cut the best cornerback in the league anymore, like he probably was going into this playoffs. He got picked on, and to me, when we look back at the best cornerbacks in the league, Sherman and Revis are probably the previous 2 to Ramsey, and I guess Gilmore if you want to count Gilmore. Those guys did not just get picked on in playoff games.
Yeah, I mean, to his defense, to be fair, like, you know, Sherman played a zone. He plays man. I mean...
No, but, I mean, sure, I would agree with that.
It's a little bit different. I'm not saying Sherman wasn't great, obviously. He was, but, you know, it's a little bit different.
They play different, but the thing is with Sherman, offenses just didn't throw his side. Like, you're just going to have to try to find a way to exploit whether it was Maxwell or Browner or... you know, maybe Chancellor or you know, KJ Wright makes an error. You're just not throwing the ball towards Sherman. You're not. They weren't when Sherman was in his prime. And Revis, he played a lot of man, and you just literally Revis eliminated half of the field.
Yeah, and again, the rules
Ramsey is nowhere near either of those guys in my opinion.
And again, I don't think so either. But, you know, again, to be fair, again, I'm not like a huge Jalen Ramsey guy, but I'm just trying to play the other side. Like, the rules are just so in favor of the offense that it is hard it's almost impossible to be a lockdown corner in today's game. It just is, because if you barely hold someone, I mean, again, we saw the Logan Wilson thing. Like, even if you don't hold someone, like, they'll just call it. Like, as soon as they see an offensive guy kind of flail or, like, move back or lean back just a little bit or whatever, they're going to call a flag. So it is a little bit unfair to corners. You know, the fact he's still a 5-time Pro Bowler, 3-time All-Pro already. Well, he's only 25, 26.
I'm not doubting any of that.
I'm not saying
and I agree with the rule thing.
Yeah, I know. But and I just looked it up actually. The T. Higgins face mask thing. They said that actually wasn't a penalty. Like when they reviewed it and like the 2-minute report or whatever, they said it actually wasn't a penalty because they said there was no twist and turn of the face mask, which I think is ridiculous. Like they said you can grab someone's face mask, but as long as you don't twist and turn them, then it's not a penalty. But you can grab someone's face mask, you just can't twist and turn. I mean, I think that's a little ridiculous, right? I mean, that means,
like,
it means an offense you could do that almost every single time potentially. Then you could grab someone's face mask, and as long as you don't twist and turn them, it's not a penalty.
Yeah, I mean, I listen. To me, that's a penalty.
Yeah,
right?
Same.
But I guess if we're gonna play by the letter of the law, if we watch that back in slow motion, you could technically say that's very similar to some of the non-call, hand pushing and shoving that kind of goes on. It's just T. Higgins's hand kind of catches the face mask, and Ramsey's offers no resistance. And so it looks a lot worse than it really was, but yeah, I mean, that's still a flag in my opinion, although I would say I still think there's room for Ramsey to not completely fall on his bum and give up a 75-yard touchdown. I'm not saying he should have made a play, but again, we're not talking about your average number 1 corner or your average number 2 corner or a slot corner. We're talking about a top 10 defensive player in the past decade, arguably. That's what we're talking about. And a guy that you had traded 2 firsts to, and a guy that, when you got to the Super Bowl, was supposed to literally eliminate half of the field. He's supposed to be that guy. And I know he's kind of cooled down on the trash talking as the years have gone by. Like, if you remember him earlier in the Jaguars, especially right before that 2017 run they went on, I think he trash talked every single receiver and every single quarterback in the league, barring maybe a couple guys. He's cooled down on that, but this is the guy we're talking about. We're not talking about, I don't know, your average, who's the Cowboys' second corner right now? Like, we're not talking about him. We're talking about a top 10 defensive player in the past 10 years.
Yeah, no. But I think that's probably it from the game. We can go over our prop bets that we picked. I can't really remember what yours were. I have mine in front of me, but I could start with my first one, which was I had T. Higgins over 69.5 receiving yards. That, I mean, hit on one play, the 75-yard touchdown. He finished with 100 yards, 2 touchdowns. I mean, if the Bengals win the Super Bowl, I'd be curious to see who their MVP would be. I don't think it would be Burrow. I think it'd probably be T. Higgins. I mean, 4 catches, 100 yards, 2 touchdowns. I mean, Burrow only had 1 touchdown, 260 yards. It's not like he had a great game. So it probably would have been Higgins if they would have won. It wouldn't have been a defensive player. No one did anything crazy.
Well, it depends on how, if they score a touchdown on the last drive.
But let's say if they stop the Rams. Let's say they stop the Rams.
Okay.
If they score a touchdown on the last drive, yeah, it's probably Burrow, unless Higgins the one scoring the touchdown.
Yeah, it's tough to say. I mean, are you going to give the guy, I mean, what was the stat line? 4 catches, 100
yards. 100 yards, 2 touchdowns.
Let's take out the OPI. 3 catches, 25 yards and a touchdown.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, but, it wasn't gold. So.
I know, but I'm just saying, realistically,
But then Joe Burrow loses 75 yards off his total, too.
I agree, but it goes to the quarterback when there's nobody to give it to.
That means Joe Mixon would have had the only passing touchdown in the game.
I probably, if they make the stop, I probably go Burrow, but it's really just because I don't think anybody else really deserved it like people did on the Rams. And, I mean, Higgins' stats are good, but again, it's almost nothing. It's 25 receiving yards when you take out the OPI. I know Burrow's is, I want to say, 150 yards.
Well, it'd be 190, 180.
180, but that's better than 28 That's better than 28 receiving yards, in my opinion. I'd probably go Burrow, but yeah, I mean, it could be Higgins.
But in me saying that Mixon was the only one to throw a touchdown, we had non-quarterback prop bet for a touchdown, right? We did have that. And it happened. Joe Mixon, Cooper Kupp even had a chance. It wasn't for a touchdown, but just for throwing the ball. But yeah, Joe Mixon threw a touchdown. So
you bet yes, I bet no on that.
Oh, okay. Well, then I got that right then.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure I bet no. I don't have my prop bets in front of me. They're on my desktop computer. Obviously, I'm not at my desktop, so I don't have them in front of me.
I guess you can't. Yeah, we'll try and remember all the big ones that we did. The Gatorade color was blue.
Yeah, so I went purple on that.
I went red. So neither one of those.
Oh, the Peyton Manning commercial.
He bowled a strike.
He bowled a strike.
Bowled 2 strikes, I think.
I actually turned my head away from the TV right as the commercial was starting, and I looked back right as he turned around and saw Serena Williams. So I missed it. I was gonna text you, but then I just forgot.
Yeah, he bowled 2 strikes. It was him versus Jimmy Butler.
I remember. I saw the Jimmy Butler.
But yeah, I was, again, we both said no. I was thinking Eli was gonna come in. I didn't know it was for Michelob Ultra. I guess maybe I knew that.
I said it was for Michelob Ultra.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
I just didn't remember. I guess, but yeah, no, whatever. I mean, it was cool. When I did see it though, the commercial started off with him walking in. So I was like, oh, this must be the one. But there was that. Was there another one? I'm trying to think if there was another one that we had. It was a general one.
I mean, I picked on one of my prop bets was the over/under. I bet the over. It missed.
Yeah,
I bet
was the under.
Under barely, by the way. If it went into overtime, it would have been guaranteed over unless a safety won the game.
Unless a field goal. It was 48.5.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. It would have been guaranteed over unless it was a safety.
No, if they a field goal in overtime. Oh no, yeah.
Yeah, I'm saying because it was 48.5, and it was 46 had it gone into overtime. So unfortunate, but I think I bet over on the Jamar Chase receiving yards and over on the Cooper Kupp.
I had the Cooper Kupp. I don't know if you had that. Cooper Kupp.
I had Burrow and Chase over on both.
Chase went over. He had 89 yards. I think he was 72 and a half.
Yeah, I think so.
Right. Whatever it was, he was over.
I think Burrow went over.
Burrow was 260. I think.
Yeah, I think
he was 235 or something.
250 or something. I think.
Yeah. I had Cooper Kupp 105 and a half. I went over. He had 92. Didn't get that. And then I had Donald half a sack over. I said he'd have 2 sacks. He did have 2 sacks. So.
And I think, by the way, so you picked Donald as your MVP.
And I picked him as MVP.
I picked Von Miller, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I was obviously not correct. You both weren't correct. I felt like Von Miller. I mean, I wouldn't have picked him to win the MVP in that game, but I don't feel like I was. I mean, 2 sacks, just as much.
Look, the thing is, they both had they literally had the same exact stats. I think Donald had like 1 more tackle. Von Miller had 1 pass defended, but I mean, Donald had the biggest impact on that game between the two. Like the run stopping, the double teams that he had to go over, just the presence that he had. Like he was the bigger impact and presence in that game over Miller.
No, he was more impactful for sure, but this is why I think Von Miller is being underrated in this game is because without Miller, Donald's for sure not getting at least one of the sacks, in my opinion, that he got, where he pushed back. What's the right guard's name again? I forget his name is blanking right now, but he just brute forces the right guard right into Burrow. That's, I think, the play where Burrow injures his knee, I'm pretty sure.
Check.
I believe it's the play where Burrow injures his knee. Donald just brute forces the right guard right into Burrow's face and I'm pretty sure he got a sack on that play as well, one of the 2 sacks. So, again, without Miller, I don't think there is literally a single play where Donald does not get a double team. And maybe he gets some triple teams.
It was on the Von Miller sack is when Burrow got injured.
Okay.
3rd and 9 with 12 minutes left in the game.
I believe there is a play where Donald got a sack where he brute forces the right guard, and he's on a 1-on-1, regardless of whether or not it was a sack. The reason he's able to get at least some 1-on-1s is because, in my opinion, of Miller. Without Miller, listen, Donald's the better player. He's the more impactful player in that game, especially because he is better in the run game, and he plays a position that is, you have to be better in the run game in that position, obviously. So, but I do think Miller is being underrated because I think, while Donald was better, I think you could say without Miller, Donald doesn't have as big of a game, and without Donald, Miller doesn't have as big of a game. So I think they really both help each other out. Although I would still agree, obviously, Donald had the better game and is by far the better player. And I think there's no doubt about it. He's the best defensive player since Lawrence, probably Reggie White at least, right? I mean, who are the best defensive players of all time? It's
Bruce Smith, Reggie White, Lawrence Taylor.
I guess maybe you throw Ray Lewis in there. I probably wouldn't.
I don't know. It's maybe. I don't know. It's kind of hard to think about it. But defensive line: Reggie White, Bruce Smith, Lawrence Taylor, and then I would say, especially interior defensive linemen. I guess the last guy was Mean Joe Green. Yeah, again, we never saw him play, but he definitely wasn't this impactful. A guy who can literally get 20 sacks.
They won 4 Super Bowls, and he might have been.
Well, I'm not saying that. I'm saying for an interior defensive lineman to get 20 sacks, Donald's done that. He's gotten 20 sacks in a season as an interior defensive lineman when you're guaranteed to see more guys anyways because you're not one-on-one on the outside. So you're guaranteed to at least get a guard or a center or both, or you're just going to get passed along to the other guard on the other side if you try to do a stunt. So, but the thing that you were saying, it's funny how it works out. 2015, you have Von Miller, obviously won MVP of that game, but you had DeMarcus Ware, like I was saying. DeMarcus Ware in that game, 2 sacks, 2 assists, 3 solo tackles in that game. Now you look at Von Miller 7 years later, he's basically like DeMarcus Ware. Comes over, at the end of his career, but still impactful. Donald's now like the Von Miller, even though he's older. They're more established, I guess, because Von Miller was only in the league for about 5 years at that time. But, if, Von Miller, 2 sacks in this game. Donald obviously, easily could have won MVP. Von Miller did. So it's almost like, 7 years later, like it's almost like a role reversal with Von Miller being, the star, now being like the older veteran guy, but still gets the 2 sacks just like DeMarcus Ware did.
I would agree with that. My only thing if I was to compare Von Miller to DeMarcus Ware, there's no listen, I know you might disagree with this, but there's no doubt about it. Von Miller is the better all-time player than DeMarcus Ware.
Well, I never said that.
No, I know. I'm just
saying the way it worked out was that, he comes over as a free agent or, he got traded or whatever, but, he comes in the Super Bowl, and then without his presence, who knows? Like, does Von Miller have that insane of a game if DeMarcus Ware isn't getting 2 sacks and probably taking pressure off Von Miller in that game? I don't know. So
I will say this. If I had to rank the guys that I've seen defensively, probably, I guess, 2010-ish and on, Von Miller might be number 2 on my list. Donald's number 1 for sure. Von Miller might be number 2. That 2015 run, he was the most valuable guy on that team. In this Rams team, you could make arguments that aren't Aaron Donald. You could make an argument that it is Stafford because, again, it's the quarterback. And the quarterback obviously is the most important position in pretty much all of team sports. You can make the argument it's Cooper Kupp because Cooper Kupp had the most productive season of any wide receiver in history, especially when you include the playoffs. You can make the argument it's you probably don't make the argument it's Jalen Ramsey or Von Miller, but you would say that those guys are probably 2 of the top 10 defensive players of the 2000s. So where I'm going with this is Von Miller's 2015 run to me is super hard to beat because I don't think, while that defense was insanely talented, Chris Harris Jr. was not Jalen Ramsey on paper. DeMarcus Ware is not, in my opinion, 2022 Von Miller, although he was still really good. I think the offense and this Rams team is for sure on paper a hell of a lot better than the 2015 Broncos offense. So I think that's one of the all-time runs I've ever seen from a defensive player. He almost carried them to the Super Bowl.
No, I mean, he did.
He did carry that team to the Super Bowl.
Not taking any credit away from him. I agree with everything you just said. But that Broncos defense had better players in total on that defense than this Rams defense. You really have Donald, Miller, Ramsey, then you have like Floyd a little bit. But you look at that Broncos team. I mean, they had some absolute insane players on that defense.
They did.
And then obviously the offense too. But a couple of people. But I agree obviously. But
I guess if I was to rank the best players of 2010 and on defensively, Donald's 1, right? You would agree with that, or?
Yeah, I think so.
I'd probably go Von Miller 2. I don't know.
Probably is number 2.
Maybe Revis. Maybe I'm biased because I like Revis.
No, I don't know about.
He didn't have his.
He
kind of. If we're going from 2010 and on, he probably can't be on top 2. Although he did have some really good years in like 2011, 2012. But again, that's only a couple years. I would probably have Von Miller too. But anyways.
I think we went over the prop bets, went over the game itself. That was the Super Bowl.
There were some prop bets we didn't talk about for sure. But we're just because I don't.
Oh wait,
have them on my
national
computer.
anthem. I just remembered that. That went under.
It went under. I said under.
Wait, what time did we have it at?
146.
Then it went over.
Oh, it did. Okay.
It was 151. At least I timed it, and I was pretty confident I got it exactly correct. Maybe it was like half a second or whatever, but I did 151.
All right. I'll put all our. Okay, cool. So I bet under, so I was wrong. But any of the prop bets we didn't talk about, I'll leave them down in the description, I'm pretty sure, when I get back to my computer. But other than that, that's pretty much it. Appreciate everybody for sticking to the end of the video. Unless you have anything else to add.
That's, I guess now NFL season's over, but the draft will be coming up. So we'll be doing our mock drafts. We'll probably do 3 mock drafts just like last year. But that won't be coming for a little bit.
The NBA draft or NFL one, you mean?
NFL.
Yeah, okay. That's still a couple months away.
But the combine's not for another month.
Yeah.
So
anyways, I think that's pretty much it. My SD card is running out of storage as we talk.